this is giving our sovereignty, our power, our voice to something outside of ourselves. And when we are doing that and believing that something else is giving or taking away, that we are going to consistently be stuck and not have the power within us. And so reclaiming your self-sovereignty is to decide that I hold the power.
Welcome to the Bold Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Kinnell, and this is a space where bold moves meet inspired action. Join us as we dive into stories, strategies, and mindset of those who are building their dreams, creating impactful communities, and redefining success on their terms. Whether you're looking for practical business tips, a boost of inspiration, or a community that gets your vision, you are in the right place. Get ready to elevate your journey and embrace what it means to be a bold founder. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the Bold Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Jen Kinnell, and this season we're diving deep into what it really means to build a business and a life that feels good, not one that just looks good on paper. So we're exploring the power of slowing down, prioritizing self-care, and creating more spaciousness in how we lead with clarity, intention, and ease. So today's guest is someone whose work really aligns so deeply with that mission. And honestly, I couldn't think of a more powerful voice to bring this conversation to life for us. So I'm inviting Brianne, a self-healing mentor, fierce truth seeker, and one of the most grounded, compassionate, and unapologetically honest women that I've had the honor of connecting with. Brianne helps women reclaim their sovereignty by owning their full story, even the parts that they want to hide. Her journey through childhood abuse, health struggles, family dysfunction, and even major business collapse has shaped her into someone who doesn't just talk about healing, she embodies it. Her work is not about fixing yourself, but about remembering your worth, sitting in your darkness, and learning how to regulate your nervous system so that you can show up powerfully in your business, relationships, and life. She's also building a freedom-based business, which I am very all for, but lets her travel and see more of the world. And today she's giving us an inside look of how she's doing this while staying true to herself. So Brianne, I'm so excited for you to be here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here too. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today.
I know, I got lots of questions lined up for you.
Excellent. I'm all ready for it.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so can you take us back to your own personal turning point? Like, when did you realize that something had to change, that you couldn't keep abandoning yourself to keep the peace?
This is such a good question. And I kind of want to preface this by saying that I think we have all been through multiple points in our journeys where all of a sudden we go, ugh, or ugh, something just doesn't feel right. And we know that we need to change something, but we don't really know how to do that. And so we have to kind of slow down, come back to ourselves, and give ourselves a chance to really align with who it is that we actually are and what we desire to create for our life. So my journey has been full of lots of moments where I needed to pivot, I needed to change, I needed to do something different. And I think it's helpful if I walk all the way back to the beginning, but I will get towards the most pivotal part near the end. So my journey through childhood was an interesting one. I was very much raised in an environment where girls and women were meant to be seen and not heard. We were meant to be quiet, not show our emotions, definitely not talk outside of the home about how things were going for you from a truthful perspective. It was about putting on this front, making it seem like you were perfect, you were fine, and that everything was going well for you in your life. And you definitely didn't want to talk about somebody else upsetting you or somebody needing to do something different in order for you to feel good. So it was all about making other people feel good. And my entire childhood was set up like this. My mom was a single mother. My biological father wasn't a part of my life for many years. There was some outings in and out, but I was actually sexually abused by my biological father when I was younger, so he wasn't really a part of the picture. And so walking back to childhood with my mom, she was very much an individual who had her own hurt, her own pain going on and didn't show love or affection towards me. And so my childhood was very abrupt. There was a lot of anger, a lot of swearing, a lack of that feeling of support or love. And so I learned pretty quickly and early on in life that the way to earn this love or to have affection be shown is by doing things for other people. And so I started from childhood doing all of the chores in the home and, trying to get perfect grades and being the cousin that got everybody else playing games and doing all this stuff because I wanted to be loved. I wanted to feel like I was worthy, I was enough, I was deserving of the affection and the kindness and support in my life. And so this started from an early age. And then fast forward to my later childhood years or mid childhood years, I guess. My sexual abuse incident happened at the age of 9. I really went kind of down a dark tunnel after that in my adolescent and started engaging in activities from a really young age, like drinking at bush parties at the age of 11 and being involved with boys, very promiscuous from a very young age. And so I was learning from multiple sources in my life that I wasn't just worthy or I wasn't just lovable. I had to do something or give something to somebody else in order to receive that. So, stemming up into my adult years, I therefore ended up becoming an adult who was really fixated on giving to other people and not giving just because it felt good, because, we all do that and we love to give in different ways, but more so giving from the perspective that I had to do that in order to be loved and be taken care of. So, into my career, I've been an entrepreneur in this world for about 9 years now. And my entire entrepreneur career has been fixated on this notion of other people know better than me, and I have to give in order to get anything. And it takes a lot of hard work and hustle and devotion in order to live a life of your dreams. So I started creating this business. I was a registered nurse and I decided to open this holistic healthcare practice. And it's something that I started, 9 years ago on my own and slowly started to go in this direction of health coaching and wanted to create this option for people that didn't really exist. And given what kind of happened with the pandemic and our whole economy over the last, 5 years, I really seen us being on the cusp of things going in this direction for health and thought it was going to be this awesome business plan. So I got this crazy idea to expand this business in a really tremendous way and open multiple clinics, hire all these staff onto my team. And this is all taking place in basically the year of like 2023, the beginning parts of it. And the entire time that I was building this business, although of course I didn't know this from a conscious perspective, I was building it for the reasons of wanting to have somebody like me, somebody to love me, somebody to care for me. And I wanted to be seen as this successful person, like, oh, look at her, look at what she's done, look at what she's, been able to make happen after all this hardship and trauma that she's faced in her life. And I just wanted to have that be a feeling that I received from somebody, feel like I was worth it, and look what I did. So as I was building this business in 2023, I was taking a lot of risks. I wasn't thinking very logically. I was beating, the drum faster than I could manage, and ultimately ended up having this business catastrophically fail to the point where I lost everything, hundreds of thousands of dollars, blew through my husband's entire pension, all of our savings, our other business got wiped out, and I ended up having to declare bankruptcy, give up my nursing license, and walk away from the entire thing. And from there stemmed even more problems because then I had wages that were left owed to staff and I had invoices and contracts that couldn't be paid out. And it ended up creating a cancel culture mentality online where for almost 2 years I was targeted, told what a terrible person I was, a fraud, an imposter, a scam artist, the list goes on and on. And I ended up ultimately sinking into the deepest depression, the most stressed and most sick that I have ever been in my life. And I mean, we just skimmed the surface really briefly of the traumas that I've experienced in my life. I've had an extensive amount of trauma up until this point. But this catastrophic fail of the business was that pivotal moment where every fear that I had about not being liked, not being understood, being judged and criticized, and all of these things became forefront in my life. They came to the surface in every way possible for me to face them and to recognize that up until this point, I had been wearing a mask of who I was. I had gotten really good at showing up in a way that was what I thought that person needed me to be in that moment. I had many different masks. If you needed me to show up in this way, or I perceived that you needed this from me, I could show up in that way. Not because it was me, but because I thought that that's what you needed in order to give me love. And so I got so good at wearing all these masks that when the crash of this business happened and all of these masks got taken away, and suddenly I wasn't liked and I wasn't loved and I was being criticized and judged, and even to the point of death threats in my email, like it got to be quite serious. When it got to this point and all of these masks were ripped out from underneath of me, I didn't know what I had left. There was like a shell of a person. I didn't know who I was, I didn't know what I wanted, and I certainly didn't know how to continue showing up in this world and face that heavy shame that came with the failure of this. And so this last year since then has been dedicated towards me trying to figure a lot of that stuff out and recognizing that I no longer have to abandon myself in order to get the love that I desire, because the love that I desire actually comes from within me. And everything that I have been looking for and searching for my entire life has literally always been here. Because the truth is that when we look at ourselves, the only opinion of us that matters is our own. And I didn't know that for the majority of my life. And it took this catastrophic failure in order for me to recognize that I held the power. It was my opinion that mattered. And I didn't have to abandon myself to try to make other people happy and bend over backwards to give them what they wanted. I really only had to focus on what I wanted and being able to fulfill that for myself. And so it comes back to kind of like this identity piece of really recognizing what my identity is, who I want to choose to be for the rest of my life moving forward, and recognizing that that changes in every single moment of every single day. And it's okay that my identity of who I want to become is not fixed in stone. We're all learning, we're all growing, we're all healing on a continuous basis. And it's important to be flexible with these notions of who we want to be so that we can continue to show up as the best versions of us in every situation as we move forward. So that was probably the most pivotal part of my journey so far.
I think like even though that's such a hard and traumatic things, like a lot of things that you've gone through, I think it's also such a beautiful look back and reflection on how much that has made you stronger, how much that has made you really look inside at yourself and like you said, give yourself that love you've been desiring and craving, and it's been there all along and we didn't know that. And I think many entrepreneurs can relate to the fact that we do create things for other people and we want to see what their response is, and did they love it? Why did they love it? I think a lot of people can relate to this on so many different levels. So I do really appreciate you sharing this story and being so open and honest with us about it, because you do really have to go right to the very beginning to be able to see how this has impacted your life, how it has shaped how you connect and relate with other people. And then kind of seeing that fall and collapse of, like you said, that the horrible couple years of going through where people were mean to you and upset with you, and how you had to deal with that and had to actually sit back and be like, okay, this is not a reflection of me. This is circumstances, and I need to be there for myself, because at that point, it's very, very hard for you when everyone's not being nice, for you to be nice and gentle to yourself. And so congratulations to you for really taking that time to see that for yourself and to start celebrating that for yourself, really being there for you.
I appreciate that. And I will say too, and this sounds so crazy, a lot of people think I'm insane when I say these words, but I really am so grateful for the experiences over the last few years, because it actually opened my eyes up to so many different areas of my life where I was not honoring myself. And it also helped me fall into alignment with the direction that I have always known that I was meant to go. It's funny, even, 9 years ago when I first started health coaching and then starting to build this practice, no matter what I offered, whether it was on health or a chronic condition or on diabetes, you name it, every piece of work that I created always ended up coming back to trauma coaching and helping people heal and move past the hard things that they've been through in their life. And so, this experience, this catastrophic failure of recognizing I don't want to be a nurse, I have never wanted to be a nurse, I don't want to teach on health. I actually am so passionate about teaching people about trauma and healing their bodies and being able to move past this. And so, I am so incredibly grateful for the failure and the bankruptcy and the hatred and all of these things that life ultimately brought to me with this experience because I've never felt more in alignment, more healthy, more happy, more intuitively guided than I do right now post that experience. And so it really has taught me so much. Is what helped me get onto the path of, breath work and somatic practices and identity embodiment. And it has been a true gift despite all of the hardship that happened.
I do think that the world has a way of like guiding you, like it'll slowly guide you where you're supposed to go. And then when you don't
Mhm.
listen, it does give you a couple things where you're like, okay, I'm listening now. Like, I
Absolutely.
see it.
Starts as a
So,
pebble, if you ignore that, then
yes,
it's a rock, and then it's a boulder, and yeah, it just keeps getting worse
yes.
until you pay attention.
Yeah, they say that for health. I believe that for health. I believe that for business. Like you'll start to see things like trickle off and you'll be like, oh, okay, I see like that's happening. And then it happened again. You're like, okay. And then something big happens and you're like, all right, I got it. We got to shift and pivot now.
Mhm. I couldn't agree more.
Hmm. Okay, so I love your message of go regulate yourself. I just think that's like so important because like you said, it's not from outside sources that help regulate us. Our nervous system is regulated by ourselves. And as I do find that can be a hard thing to deal with. So I would love to like hear what that phrase means to you and why nervous system regulation is so foundational in your work.
Absolutely. So, Go Regulate Yourself is the name of my podcast. And for anybody who isn't familiar, and it was something that resonated with me on many different aspects. So, first of all, in what I have learned in my healing journey, is the fact that we are all responsible for taking care of ourselves, for facing our triggers, for healing, and for moving past the things that we have been handed in life. Not everything that we have went through is obviously our fault. Life just happens and things occur. But I do believe that it is our responsibility to take what life has given us and be able to choose the next best step for ourselves moving forward. And so this really became apparent to me throughout these last couple of years when I recognized that, quite honestly, for a long time, I was in a way of spiritual bypassing, which for anybody who doesn't know that, is basically like when you've done a little bit of work and then you think, now I'm healed and now, everything is taken care of. And so now we don't think that we have to continue to do healing work. And so I was like that for a while where I had started my conscious healing journey, about 12 years ago and started to really take care of myself and get into self development and learn these things. And I thought that I was done. I healed the big things, quote unquote, in my life, my sexual abuse trauma and a lot of my childhood stuff. And I was able to move past a lot of these big instances. So I'm healed and I'm done. But what I didn't realize was that I was ignoring the responsibility of all of these other fears and things that were still underneath the surface, including those fears of being misunderstood, judged, criticized, etc. And so when I realized that it was my responsibility to heal these things and what was happening to me in my life, in fact, was my own fault, that was the hardest pill in the world to swallow. And so, Go Regulate Yourself for the podcast idea was kind of born from the notion of that endearing reminder to take care of yourself, to prioritize yourself, that it's your responsibility to heal and do something for yourself. But it also ended up ultimately being a way of pointing the middle finger and being like, take care of your shit and stop bugging me. Because when we look at, the title of like, go F yourself, go regulate yourself is still a way of like telling people to deal with their own things, their own challenges, their own problems. But ultimately, also recognizing that it applies to ourselves as well. And so this is just kind of like an enduring reminder. It's what I hope to be will be coined as a viral kind of hashtag in the future where everybody is telling everybody to go regulate themselves or go reg themselves. But that is kind of what it was born from. So when we talk about regulation, we're talking about nervous system healing. This has been a foundational part of my teachings, my medicine, even before I was really in this world. So when I think back to, when I first got started in the conscious healing, and why I say conscious is because we all talk about starting a healing journey at a particular time, but what we're really talking about is being conscious to our healing journey, because we are healing 24/7, have always been, will always be. It's just a matter of whether or not we're actually conscious to that. So 12 years ago is when I started my conscious healing journey, and my foundational practices then included things to regulate my system, my body, and heal the traumas that had been pocketed inside. And so I've been teaching this for many years before I even went into this direction of being a self-healing mentor. And so when we talk about the body, your body is the smartest machine on the planet, right? Your lungs don't forget to breathe. Your heart doesn't forget to beat unless there's an issue. And our body is so much more intelligent than we can even begin to fathom on a conscious level. Every single thing that we go through and experience in our life is pocketed inside of our body. So if you think about little t traumas or big T traumas in our life, the things that we experience, these are all pocketed inside of us energetically. And when we're working with the nervous system, our body in a lot of our day-to-day environments feels unsafe. There are things that are what we can call triggers that appear for us that remind our body of previous experiences that we have went through. And it signals this underlying unconscious process within us that is basically like a re-remembering of those traumas. And so we're consistently moving through our day being triggered and not even realizing it. So when we're feeling these big emotions, anxiety, anger, fear, all these things bubbling up inside of us, it really is just a re-remembering of the body of these previous things. And it's our job and responsibility to remind our nervous system that we are safe. But another big thing is recognizing that we are not just trying to ignore and stuff down these feelings and just say, oh, I'm safe, it's fine. We're actually trying to go into what it is that we are feeling. We're trying to move through the things that are coming up, because the more that you resist things, the more that they persist. And trying to ignore, go around, or, go under or over top of the emotions that you're experiencing is only going to lead to those continuing to manifest for you in your life again and again and again. So when we're talking about nervous system healing, we are talking about doing the work. We're talking about creating a safety net for your body, starting to understand and explore the things that you are feeling, figuring out ways to actually feel and release those things, and then be able to reset yourself with a higher vibration, or if you're familiar with Abraham Hicks, like get on the higher flying disc so that you are staying in a place where you feel energetically and vibrationally a match for that future version of you that you're trying to become. Because this is literally the process of like law of attraction or manifestation for anybody who's familiar with those things. We're looking to ultimately change our vibrational state, but it doesn't happen from coming from, jumping from where we are to the highest flying disc. We have to move through the feelings and take those slow steps to create that safety for our bodies. So this really is a big foundational part of what I teach and how I help women kind of come into not control, but power within their own bodies and recognize what they're feeling when they're feeling it and be able to move through it effectively and easily.
I really like how you're actually saying, like, okay, so if we listen to our nervous system and listen to what's triggering it, but also not just saying, okay, we're fine, we're safe. We're actually going ahead and we're thinking, okay, this is what's triggering me. Why is it triggering me? How can we manage this and deal with this in a way that it no longer becomes a trigger for us? And then that is our stepping stone into becoming our next version of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so obvious, but yet we don't think of it that way. And so I think that was just such a beautiful way to explain that. Because you're right, if we were constantly triggered by the same thing, we're never going to step into that next level. And then that manifestation is never really going to come towards us because we're not ready yet, right? We
Mm-hmm.
haven't dealt with the things that are setting us off. And as we start dealing with these things, we become stronger. We can see things more where they trigger us less, and we are more ready for that next level of us. I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it that I don't think people usually do.
Absolutely. And I think it is a lot of self compassion too, of recognizing that it's okay that you're feeling the feelings. When you're having a hard day and every little thing is pissing you off and frustrating you, it's okay. It's not about beating yourself up and judging yourself for having those things because part of the human experience is emotions, and that is always going to be present. So we have to allow ourselves this space to really experience it, have compassion for it, move through it, and get to the other side. I mean, one of my, I guess, most asked questions that I get from clients and people on social media from the podcast, etc., is how do you know when you've healed? Like, how do you know when you've overcome something? And I always giggle a little bit at this question because the truth is that we are, like I said, always healing. And our body is continually going through previous things that we've been through and being able to get to a deeper root, and continue healing some of those really embedded beliefs and foundations that we have. But while healing is a continuous, lifelong thing that occurs, there are moments that we reach these stages where old things don't trigger us, as you said, as much as they used to. And so if you think about like the human body as an example, in a day, one single day, we replenish 330 billion cells in the body in one day. So if you think about the body as continually healing, continually refreshing, continually becoming new, it's the same thing when we think of our soul in terms of healing. We are consistently refreshing, replenishing those old things. They're always going to be a part of us. All of our cells, all of our body, this is going to be a part of us our entire lives. But it's continuing to heal and replenish as we move through life. And it's the same thing in regards to our emotional, spiritual, and mental well being and healing, too. We're still going to be us, but we're going to continue to replenish and refresh that as we move through life.
I think that's beautifully said.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about your reclaiming your sovereignty. For someone who's listening, who feels like they've lost their voice or their sense of power, where can they start with that?
Hmm. So I'll start with saying, for anybody who doesn't know what sovereignty is basically the notion and the idea that we all hold the power of our own lives within us. There is nothing external that can give us what we want, and there is nothing external that truthfully impacts us. And this is going to be very triggering for some people if this is the first time that you've heard this, because a lot of us want to put our power in something else, right? Well, I'm at the place that I'm in my life because of my doctor, or because of the government, or because of the economy. But this is giving our sovereignty, our power, our voice to something outside of ourselves. And when we are doing that and believing that something else is giving or taking away, then we are going to consistently be stuck and not have the power within us. And so reclaiming your self-sovereignty is to decide that I hold the power. No matter what is going on around me, no matter what the government is doing, no matter what this industry is doing, no matter what the economy is doing, I hold the power. I am safe, and I can choose to have better for my life. And so it really is coming back to that mind, body, and soul capacity of trusting your intuition, trusting yourself, and being able to take control and responsibility to move forward with ease and make decisions that are better suited to you. So when we're talking about the very beginning stages of deciding that you want to take back your voice and take back your power, truthfully, it comes down to the decision. And this sounds really silly or really minuscule, but it is the most important thing because you have to decide that you are responsible and you hold the power. And this isn't something that you just say, okay, yeah, I'm responsible. I hold the power. And then you continue going on with your life, doing the same things and taking the same steps, doing the same habits, etc. No, it's every moment of your life moving forward, you have to continue to choose the same thing again and again. You have to continue to remind yourself, I hold the power. I get to choose. I get this to look different. It doesn't have to be this way. I can choose a new belief or choose a new direction for my life. And so once you have solidified yourself in that decision and decided, I'm not budging on this. This is going to be where I stick for the rest of my life with the sovereignty of myself. Then from there is where you begin to make those small little changes. And you get to start to ask yourself questions in every single moment of your day. Does this align with me? Does this feel good to me in my body? Do I want to be doing this or saying this or engaging in this? And when you start to analyze, but not analyzing from a critical perspective, analyzing with compassion and love and tapping into that intuition, when you begin to analyze from that perspective, what does and does not resonate with you, that's where you begin to actually make the changes, because now you are tapping into your own inner alignment, tapping into your intuition and deciding what you actually want your life to look like. And this has been a game changer for me in my life, simply getting to know my body and what feels good to me, and has really led to massive changes in my life. Like, I don't know if you or any of your listeners are familiar with human design, but I'm a 5/1 manifesting generator. And so I have a sacral response that's like a hell yes or a hell no when I do things. There's no in between, right?
Yeah, me
So,
too.
yeah. So I need to like have that clear cut answer. I need to know, does this feel good? If it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And I got to walk away
Yeah.
from it. So it's really trusting that intuition or that inner voice for yourself, however that shows up, whatever that looks like, and just really leaning into those decisions, allowing yourself to start rearranging your life and changing it to match what actually is inside of you, for your desires, for your needs, your wants, all of the deepest things within you. And so that is kind of the first step of reclaiming that sovereignty.
I think that's really, really like good to think about for every single person listening. Like, how are you actually listening to yourself and listening to your voice? And where are you giving that power away? And how can you reclaim it? How can you bring that back so that it is your voice and that you have the choices? And like that is really how we can like live our lives. Like we have the choice to choose which direction we go in with our businesses. We have the choice to choose where we go with our families. So I think that's just a beautiful way of looking at that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about travel. I love how much you've traveled and the places you've gone to. So, how does travel and freedom play into your healing? And like, how is building a business on your terms open you up to more of the life that you want and desire?
For anybody who doesn't know, my husband and I actually sold our house and everything that we owned back in 2021. And we have since been traveling 6 months a year. So from about April till October, we are here in Canada for the most part. And then generally from about October to April, we are gone traveling somewhere. And so we decided to do this for multiple reasons, which ties very directly into my life journey. So, on one hand, I took a look around. My husband and I looked at all the people in our lives, and we've seen so many people not doing anything but working 16-hour days for their entire lives, waiting until they got to the retirement age when they were going to go do all these things and see all these things. And then suddenly there's an injury or an illness or some other life factor that prevents them from being able to actually see the world and do things that they want to do. And we just decided, that's not the kind of life that we want to live. I was working in the time as a nurse in the hospital. My husband was, working at a plant. He's a tradesman, millwright welder. And we were never seeing each other up until this point. We had different careers in different places. We would be on different shifts. And it just didn't feel good to us in any way, shape, or form. So then when the pandemic hit, we really realized like we don't want to be locked in here. We don't want to be stuck in our home and not be able to experience things. So we got to get out. And so we listed the house and we decided to take off. And it's funny and ironic that I say this, that, the viewpoint of how other people were living their lives is a big factor in our journey, because the truth is that I was still building this other company at the time. And so even though we were traveling during our winter months, I was still working really long hours abroad, multiple hours of calls a day. And it was very draining to my system. Like there was points when I was doing, 14, 16 hours of calls a day, which is outrageous. And so this lifestyle kind of got born at this point. Got to travel some incredible places. I mean, we've been all over. We've been all over Central America, South America, all over Asia, still tons of places on our bucket list, but we've got to see a good chunk of the world at this point. And we just really fell in love with being able to have the freedom and see, the beauty of the world. And I'm a huge ocean person. And also, getting to experience other things in life. Like my husband and I both have our scuba diving tickets. So we love to go scuba diving in different countries and do some of those things. So this part of the travel and freedom lifestyle was really being born, but I didn't recognize how much of my view of success with this old company was tied to, like I said, a different image than what I actually wanted. So when this company went downhill and I had this catastrophic failure, I actually realized quite quickly that the freedom that I was seeking was actually freedom from being able to control my time and not having to be on lots of calls or always be, somewhere expected to be by somebody else. And so this business that I have been building up until this point has been around, up until like a year ago with the last company. This business has been around the image of wanting to work lots and have all these calls and be successful from that image. And this last year has changed tremendously to now be, I want minimal calls. I want to wake up when I want to wake up. I want to be able to control my schedule for the day, that manage energy. I want to be able to flow from one activity to the next. I want to be able to trust my intuition and my inner guidance and just really allow that to be a part of my schedule and not be so strategic and structured in that way. And so this definition of like that freedom within business has significantly changed in the last few years, specifically the last year. And now the business that I'm building on my terms quite literally matches what I just said. I don't have a rigorous schedule. I don't have a lot of calls built into my schedule. I'm building in a residual business where it is more group coaching programs to help more people rather than a lot of one-to-one calls. And it is being able to deliver my medicine in other ways than being tied to my computer 24 hours a day. And so the definition has really changed with time, but the ultimate goal is to be able to continue traveling like we are, basically going whenever we want, wherever we want, and ultimately not being tied down to a particular schedule, but allowing this to be more freedom based.
I really, really love this conversation because I think that a lot of entrepreneurs, they're like, okay, I want to be able to travel more. So I'm going to build this business that allows me to travel. But they still have that like hustle mindset where they have to work and they have to get everything done. And they're building this big, huge thing because that's what success is to them at that moment. And I've done it like where I've been like, okay, well, I can do this and this and this. And then you start living it and you're like you said, you're traveling to all these amazing places, but then you're working like a
Mm.
ton, not just like a little bit, but a ton. And it's not until we like realize, okay, I'm able to travel, which is amazing. However, I'm working so much that I'm not even getting enough time in these beautiful places that I am. So we have to like trial and error and shift up our businesses. And I just love that you brought that up and how much you've changed and rebuilt your business to align with that even further. Because I think that's so powerful. And I'm really, really diving into a lot of the how can we build our businesses to make more money and to support more of our life, but still working way less? Like that is a
Mhm.
huge factor for me right now, especially when we're looking like I'm looking closer to retirement. I don't know if you are yet. Like, I mean, we're like 10 years away, but I'm in my head, I'm like, we're probably longer than 10 years. But in my head, I'm like, this is our focus. We need to make sure that all like roads are funneling properly towards this end goal. Right. And so I just love that, like, yeah, just because you can build your business to set you up so that you can travel doesn't mean that it's still there. Like we need to always constantly adjust. And as our lives and our lifestyles changes, still adjust more.
Yeah. I was so famous for saying before, if I stop stirring the pot stops stirring. And after everything was said and done and the business was closed, I would look back and I went, why did I ever think that I was free? Why did I ever think that that was something that I wanted to be involved in? How
Yeah.
restrictive and icky was that feeling of the pressure? And I don't ever want to go back to that.
Yeah. You live and you learn. Like you go through those things and you're like, yeah, we're not going to do that again. We're going to build this separate, like differently.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I do love seeing all your travels and seeing where you're going. And I just, I admire you so much because I agree. I want to make sure that we get to travel a whole bunch while we can. We get to travel with our kids so we get to show our kids like the world a little bit more. And that's really important to me because what happens if you get to the point where you've now retired and you can't do that,
Mhm.
right? Like you've saved all this money to travel with your loved one and then you're not physically able to do that.
Exactly. How devastating would that be?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I could just travel now, get to see the world now, enjoy it now, enjoy life. So as a business owner, how do you personally stay regulated and aligned as a leader?
This is such a good question. First of all, I want to say that right now on social media, we have a big thing happening where a lot of people are calling themselves healers that are pushing this agenda and this notion that you need this specific program, this specific tool. You have to do things in this way in order to heal or get the results that you desire. And quite honestly, it gives me a big fat ick in the industry right now. And not to say that these people aren't healers, because they very well might be, but my belief and what I wholeheartedly want every single woman to understand is a true healer doesn't heal you. A true healer empowers you to heal yourself. We don't actually do anything to change you. You do the thing to change you. And I don't believe there's a single thing that you need or you have to get or do in order to heal and get to the place that you want to get to. It's about listening to yourself and recognizing what makes sense to you, what aligns with you, what resonates with you, and choosing to follow that path moving forward. So, in a lot of the work that I do and what I teach and what I live and breathe in my own life is utilizing a fat ton of different modalities. I believe in building up a tool bucket or a tool chest where you have all of these different things inside of it that you can pull out whenever it makes sense to pull it out. And so I, as my own regulation techniques, utilize a ton of different things. I don't stick to one thing. I'm consistently changing and trying different things, different practices, whether it be from breath work and somatic practices like rocking or therapeutic tremoring, shaking, dancing. I was even doing some twerking videos for a while to really get a lot of that energy out of my lower part of my body, because as women, that's where we hold a lot of trauma and a lot of different tension and stress. And so I, change from things like that, doing creativity activities like painting or pottery, or right now I'm going back and relearning how to do embroidery, which is a really frustrating thing, but also really fun to do at the same time. And I also utilize other tools. So like journaling and talk therapy and meditation and hypnosis, the list goes on and on. And so there's not one thing that I do to stay regulated. But what I do choose to do is allow myself to pull out these tools consistently every single day whenever I feel that I need them. So I have like a set morning practice, a set evening practice, but I also use things throughout the day whenever emotions are coming up or I feel like I need to shake some energy off or get some tension out of my body. And so I think the true secret is being able to build your tool chest, your toolbox, and then allowing yourself to engage and utilize that consistently throughout your day. That's truly how I stay regulated, even while I'm holding, all of this space for healing, not just my own healing, but other people's healings, and also running a business on top of that. It really is a huge proponent for me staying leveled, grounded, and regulated and balanced.
Yeah, I really like this because I've always heard about like, let's get a toolbox for our businesses, and these are the tools we can utilize. But I love the idea of using one for yourself. So when we start to feel something coming up or like a little bit of a tingle, like a thing that's irking us, how can we look back at this toolbox that we have for ourselves and say, okay, what do I need to pull out to make me feel better? And maybe it might just be like going and having a little dance party.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, the worst thing is pushing one modality or one tool. If I was to say, okay, like you can only use journaling, that's all you can use. Journaling is your tool. That's all you can use no matter what's coming up. Well, that might be fine and dandy when you're processing some anxiety or some fear. But what happens when anger and rage comes to the surface? Do you think that you're going to effectively be able to move that through journaling? Well, you might, depending on the person. But for the majority of people, you need to move your body. You need to take some ice cubes out to the concrete and smash them down, or punch a pillow, scream in a pillow, do rage dancing. Like there needs to be other modalities that you have available to you to move through these different emotions, because not every tool works for every person. And that pisses a lot of other, influencers or healers or mentors online off. But the truth is that not every tool works for every person, and you have to figure out what works for you.
And I like that you said that too, because even in like when we think about this, what works to me is when I always say, this is the method, the course, the path. Exactly. If you follow this, it will be the best thing for you. It'll bring you so much sales. I'm like that worked for you. Great. Fantastic. That doesn't work for everybody.
Mhm.
And everybody's gonna have to play a little bit of trial and error. And yeah, the path might be there perfect, but then we just have to adjust it for ourselves. And so I love the idea that you're saying, okay, yeah, let's give this a try. And if that doesn't work, let's try this. Let's look at what you're dealing with and let's try a different tool. And I just think that is what life is about. That's what business is about, is just really trial and error and seeing what works best for you. And it's not one specific path that will work every single time.
Exactly.
Okay, I want to talk about boundaries because I do think that as entrepreneurs, our boundaries are tested on a regular basis. So, what does it look like to go from people pleasing and to starting to say no and starting to fully trust yourself?
Mm. This is another one that has been coming up a lot for me recently. But the thing about boundaries is that we often think that boundaries are things that we set for other people. We're teaching other people how to respond to us, how to treat us. And while in some ways that is correct, the truth of the matter is that all boundaries begin within. And our life is a mirror for what's going on within us. So if we have people that are consistently showing up and treating us poorly, something within us, a belief, a story, something that we're holding on to, is saying to ourselves, I am not worthy of being treated well, or I deserve to be treated this way. And so we have to first go inward and figure out where those challenges are coming from and be able to make some internal changes, some internal decisions to set those boundaries and standards for the future. And so, one of the biggest things that I'm working through right now that has been a really governing part of my last year is saying no. And the hardest part of this is recognizing that no is a full sentence and that you do not have to follow that up with reasoning, proof, evidence, and different excuses, etc., that for the reason that you're saying no. And this for women is a really uncomfortable piece because we all want to say, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Or, I really wish that I could, but I have all these things going on. And we feel like we really need to provide a lot of evidence for why we can't fulfill that request. But at the end of the day, no is a full sentence. And you do not have to say anything other than no. And this experimentation and getting to this place in your life can be really challenging for some of us because we do feel so much guilt and shame and judge ourselves for not being kinder. We think it's rude to just say no. And so there's a lot of inner work that needs to happen in order from moving from that people pleasing, saying yes to everybody, to actually saying no. And it's not to say that you're going to jump immediately from where you are now to just saying no to everything because, well, you might, which is incredible if you can. But for a lot of us, that's unrealistic because we have this kind of like nervous system leveling and balancing that
Yeah.
we need to do in the in-between stages. And so for you, wherever you're at right now in your life, for any of the listeners that are tuning in, take a look around at an area of your life that doesn't feel good to you right now, where you have a standard that you feel like is not being upheld, or a line is being crossed, or somebody's really just pissing you off, and you want something to be different. And so, what you want to look at that be and say is, why doesn't this feel good to me? And what would I like this to look like instead for my life? If I could have it all my way, what would I like this to look like? And from there, now you have that like shooting star area of where you're headed. And so now you want to start to ask yourself in every single, thing that gets asked of you, well, does this feel good to me? Do I want to say yes to this or do I want to say no to this? And you can practice starting to say no with the quote unquote little things in your life. And a really good hack that I'll share for you, because for some of us, we really feel like we're put on the spot. Somebody asks something, especially when it's face to face and they're like, can you do this? Or they text you, can I call you right now? A lot of us feel like we're pressured into having to say yes in those moments. And so I say, just give a little bit of a buffer room for yourself. You know what? I'll have to think about it. You know what? I'll get back to you. You know what? I'll check my schedule. Give yourself an opportunity to really be by yourself and check in with those responses, whether it's like a sacral gut response like what I get or something else in your life. If you can create some buffer of space for yourself to just sit quietly and really tune in to whether or not you truly want to do that, you're going to be able to say no more effectively. But if you expect yourself to always be giving an answer in the very beginning stages and that be in alignment with what you truly want, you're going to be off course for a little bit, most likely, because other people's energies and emotions and, their feelings are going to get wrapped up into it. So I say start there and be able to give yourself a little bit of buffer room. And then eventually you can work to this point where, like, now somebody asks me something and I know instantaneously if it's a yes or a no, and I can, respond effectively in the moment for the most part. I mean, there's always
Yeah.
an experience here and there, but that's where I would say to start.
I think that boundaries are so crucial in, like, for me, like in the business world, and yes, in personal also, but I've definitely had to be challenged in the business world of being that people pleaser, always wanting to deliver the best of the best. And also that internal chatter that I even have with myself on wanting to be like top and providing the best service. And so by going through the situations where I feel like my boundaries have been pushed and then allowing them to be pushed,
Mm-hmm.
and now looking back and say, no, you know what? I don't want to be working on weekends. I don't want to be answering text messages on weekends from clients. That's like my time off.
Yeah.
And that took me a very long time to like put that boundary in place. But now that I've like pushed that boundary further and further away, I can easily just say, sorry, I don't work weekends. Like, we'll auto schedule your content on the weekends. I don't after 5 o'clock, I'm not available. That's my family time. And feeling not upset by it, like unapologetic by it. This is my boundary. This is my time. You don't go to other businesses where the door is actually closed and you can't open it and then bang on it, expecting them to open the door for you and let you shop in their store, right? Like, that's not how it
Exactly.
works. So it's funny how you do have to have that like inner dialogue with yourself about that.
Mm-hmm. And it takes time. I'm assuming you probably didn't get to where
Hmm.
you are now, right? Overnight. Like, it took some time to build that
Oh no,
in, right?
it took some clients really pushing it, and then I was like, why am I doing this?
Beautiful.
And then you're like, okay, we're no longer doing this anymore. We're just like, this is a hard no for me now.
Yeah, you should be so proud of yourself for that too, because it takes a lot of strength to be able to get to that point, to be unapologetic in what we want and what we are
Yeah.
willing to
Well, and
allow
even
in.
when even when you first say it, you're first like, yeah, we're not going to work after this now. I'm like, no, we don't work after 5 p.m. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is just like, we can't even discuss this.
Perfect.
So what lasting advice would you like to leave with our audience with after this like really incredible conversation?
Thank you. Ah, if I had to summarize it all down into one thing, it would be to simply decide to choose yourself moving forward, to decide that you are worth it because you are, to decide that you are enough because you are, decide that you are deserving because you are. I heard one time from one of my mentors in the very early stages of my self-development work talking about this notion of feeling worthy and how, we kind of visualize in our minds that some people are just worthy and some people like ourselves maybe are just not. And if you believe in God or source or universe or anything like that, imagine all these babies, being born onto earth and somebody just taking a stamp and stamping like worthy, not worthy, worthy, not worthy. Like, that doesn't happen. You are worthy simply because you exist, because you're here on earth. Your eyes are open, you're breathing, you're alive, you are worthy, and there's nothing that can take that away from you. There's nothing that you can do outside of yourself to be more worthy or to be more enough, be more loved, be more deserving. You just simply are because you exist. And so if there's one thing that you can decide for yourself, decide to choose yourself, decide to believe that to be true, decide to allow that to embody every single action that you take from this point moving forward.
Beautiful. I love that. And where can people find you?
So coachbrianne.com is my website. So it's an easy place to get in touch. All of my links and all of the things are there. But I'm also on Instagram and Facebook at Your Coach Brianne.
Amazing. I'm so excited to have you here today. I feel like this conversation was so much more than I ever could have thought it would be. And I just really, really loved having you. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed myself and I hope your listeners got some goodness out of it.